Perfect. Well, thank you for
Good.
joining me.
That's all right. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So
Yeah.
so are you doing just Victoria show, or are you also, apart from obviously nationals, are you doing any other state shows?
Nah, so I'm just gonna do VICs and then nationals.
So do you live in Melbourne?
Yeah, so I did live in Queensland. So I've always been in Melbourne.
Okay.
I lived in Queensland for like 7 months and
Yeah.
then I moved back to Melbourne like maybe like nearly 3 months ago.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I remember seeing you, I think, at World Gym and a couple of times. And then I remember
Yeah.
at Ashmore, and I remember seeing on your story and that. So when I saw you saying that you're doing the Vic show, I was kind of like, huh, is she flying
Yeah.
down? I thought she was in
Yeah.
Queensland.
Nah, yes, I made the move back here. Yeah.
Just before prep started? Because you said about
Yeah, well, literally the week I got back, I did check in with my coach and he was like, well, we may as well just start prep now. So I
yeah.
was like, sweet.
Just kind of get it all started at once.
Yeah, no. So it was good. Yeah, good.
So how's it kind of been? You're currently 8 weeks out now, or
Yes,
7?
yeah, eight. Well, coming into 7 this Sunday, but yeah, pretty much 8. Yeah.
How have you kind of been feeling this prep? Has it been much different from last?
To be honest, it's been completely different. So my ever first prep, when was it? What year are we in? 2023. Whenever season A got cancelled because of COVID a
Oh
few
yeah.
years, so I was prepping for that show.
Okay.
And then it got cancelled like 8 weeks out. So I actually continued, like I finished my prep and just did a photo shoot instead. And then I think we went into roughly like a 10 to 12 week like maintenance reverse before I then prepped for like the next show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's completely different. I think so more so because my starting point, like I had a solid off
Yeah.
season. I got like my food up high. I was just focusing on actually building rather than just like maintaining and like putting on a little bit of size within that short distance.
Yeah.
Like the whole prep is completely different.
I think that does definitely make a difference, kind of experiencing having a, like you said, a proper off season or just a growth phase
Yeah.
comparison to kind of, finishing a prep and then it being like a short kind of, it ends up not really being a growth phase. And it's like you're saying, just a maintenance. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
go back into prep again.
Yeah.
And it blurs into like this full year prep almost.
Yeah. Cause like obviously post comp, like you're in like your recovery phase and like your body wants to recover and you're recovering from your prep.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you have that short time off and then you're straight back into prep, you're like, fuck, did I actually recover? You're like, I still feel like I'm brain fog and like everything that you experience in prep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
No,
having like the solid year off like was like one of the best things ever.
how
Yeah.
how did that kind of more so, I guess, how did you feel in the peak of those, like the push phase? Like, was it, because I guess you're saying you hadn't necessarily really experienced it compared to, the gaps in between the last two shows. So did you kind of struggle with that, or it all kind of went a lot smoother than you expected?
To be honest, I think because I said to myself as like I finished season A, once I finished competing, like I made a promise to myself that I was going to nail my reverse.
Yeah.
More so because I'm a very competitive person as it is, and I had massive expectations of myself, especially after last season. So I was like, if I nail this reverse, like I can then say when I come into prep, I gave my reverse like 100%. Like I know if I didn't give 100%, I'd not so much question prepping again for this show, but it'd make you think like, fuck, if I was 100%, like I could have achieved so much more.
Yeah.
So to know I actually did everything I could, like it just makes it so much easier, like mentally.
So you just
Yeah.
kind of like setting yourself up. So even if you may not get the result that you want, you at least put everything in. So it was just the luck of the draw that day.
Yeah, no, literally. Yeah. No, for sure.
So how did it come about with your current coach? So because I know you worked with him in the last prep, you also worked with him for the COVID season that got cancelled as well?
Yeah. So I've been with Keegan from probably 3.5 to like 4 years now.
Well, that's good.
So yeah, so I've done like all my preps with him. I was with him through like lockdown and everything like that. So yeah, I've been all my preps.
what has kind of been, well, firstly, how did that kind of come about? How did you find Keegan? Did he reach out to you? You reach out to him?
I found him. So a few of my friends get coached by him.
Yep.
And then as I was like leaning in towards getting a coach, like I followed him on Instagram and stuff. And I think more so just the way he's about, I knew that I would gel with him really well.
Which is important.
Yeah. And the way he goes about things, like, how do I put this? How do I put it? I knew that with his like knowledge and everything like that, that I could achieve like what I wanted to.
Yeah.
And the knowledge on the guy, like I know I could go to him with any question and he'd have like a paragraph of an answer explaining it instead of just like a one-word sentence.
Yeah, I think that's important. It gives you confidence in him.
Yeah. And like you can go to him and question him and he'll be able to explain why he's doing this and why you're going to do that. Like he doesn't just say like, oh, because like he actually has a full-on explanation for it.
And that's really important. That's something I've been talking about it with a few people, and it's like, so a couple of people looking for, talk to a couple of people that are wanting to find a coach and that, or change coaches. And it's just kind of like, that finding someone that, you can ask any question or and the answer that they're going to give you back is not just, or because I said so, or because what I think, like someone who can respond in a manner and give actual reasoning. Yes.
Yeah. Like, and I think that's like one of the biggest things, like with finding a coach, like you need a coach that knows their shit.
Yeah.
Like if they don't know their shit, like so many things can go wrong, and it can turn around and just bite you back in the ass and make you just not want to prep or anything like that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess because you've worked, so you're saying 3 to 4 years, that's a long time for kind of, I guess, allows you to both, well, him to get to know your body, and then that also allows you to kind of understand how he works. So I'm sure you've both kind of created a really good system and a team that works for you guys. How do you think that system or team that you've developed together has changed in comparison throughout the preps that you've done? Like, what is the biggest thing that you've kind of noticed this time around that maybe sticks out a bit more?
I think when you do a first prep with someone, you don't know how you're going to go, I think.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, no one knows how their prep's going to go. Like sometimes it could get hard for someone and they might be like, okay, I don't want to continue this prep. Like it's too hard. But I think from being able to do my first prep and actually even sticking it through, like with COVID and stuff like that, and actually finishing it, I think we kind of got on the same level of he understands like the work I'm willing to put in, if that makes sense. Like I'll do basically whatever he says. Like if he says like do this amount of cardio, like he knows I'm not going to turn around and say like, look, I'm not going to do that. Like I just do it. So I think each prep, like your relationship with your coach, like it does get stronger. Obviously, as you said, like they learn your body, like what methods work with you and training wise and everything like that. Because in my off season, I originally was on 5 days, but because my recovery was so good, we did up it to 6 days.
Okay.
And then this prepping now, I was going really good on the 6 days, but as I got leaner, like obviously your body slows down with recovery, fatigue and everything like that. And he was like, look, we're just going to put you down 5 days and see how your body changes. And like within that week, like massive changes.
Well, that's awesome.
I think just having that prime example of him doing that, it's like, okay, like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
He knows my body works.
He kind of like assessed where your body had kind of reached its level, and it was like, okay, let's pull it back. And maybe, things didn't improve, then maybe it might have not been the training and you may have went back to 6 days. Yeah.
No, for sure.
Was that the first time that you'd ever kind of trained 6 days?
Yeah. So I found like once after season A and like I was back to like normal, I just got bored on my rest days. Like I was just like, it feels weird not going to the gym. Like I feel like I need to be doing something. So yeah, basically we just added in another day to see like how I'd go. Like my recovery and everything was good. So we just continued it. And like my body was responding well to the extra day. So
I guess because you obviously had enough food in you and enough calories that obviously your recovery was great and you were feeling
Yeah.
good. What did the split look like? Because I remember, when I first trained 6 days, that was like back when I ever first started the gym. So you feel invincible back then.
Yeah.
But I couldn't even imagine trying to do 6 days now. So
I had 2 shoulder days, 1 back day. And then it was like 1 hamstring like focus day, and then like a gluten hamstring day, and then quads. Yeah.
So what I guess my question is so you're saying you had 2 shoulder days. Does that mean that was I guess a feedback from the judge or just an observation of you guys from your last showing? Because you won juniors.
Yes. So it was a bit of both. Like my feedback from my last show was just more redelts and glutes.
Okay.
So like, basically that's just what we implemented just to
bring those up.
Yeah, bring those up.
Did you? I don't know if you did. So did you do any other classes apart from juniors, or it was just juniors?
So I did juniors. I did novice as well, which I placed 3rd in nationals, and then I did opens, which I came 5th.
So you still made first call out, which is pretty good.
Yeah, and like that was my goal. Like just going into comp, like I had no expectations for my first season, but I was like, yeah, first call outs will be sick. Like, especially I achieved that, so I was like, yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm stoked.
And I think especially even taking out first place in juniors and then 3rd in novice to then there's that talk when it comes to doing shows and like doing multiple shows within the day, not multiple shows, but multiple classes or divisions. You sometimes, if you're lucky enough, you can peak kind of well and maintain the look for all 3 times. But sometimes you may hit it the first time, like in juniors, but then you may start to fall off. Did you notice anything like that, or do you think you kind of perfectly nailed it each time and your body kind of responded well?
At VIX, we noticed so like once like you do your carb up and pump up, I was flattening really quickly at VIX. So basically each time like I came off stage, we just had to like keep feeding I think it was just snakes basically. But yeah, so because I did quite like flatten quite quick, and to be honest, I think it was such a shock to my body of just holding a pose for so long. Like, yeah, I practice my posing all the time, but I think when you're on stage, you're trying to smile, pose like to the best of your ability. Like, I don't think you realize actually how hard it was. Like, I remember waking up the next day being like, I actually think something's wrong with my back because it was so sore. But then nationals like was so much better, I think, because my body was just used to it. And it was more so I knew what to expect leading into nationals. We both knew what to expect. So we just put that plan in place so it didn't happen like at VIX.
So yeah, it's kind of like that, what you're saying, that confidence that comes from, I guess, because I think if you haven't competed before and you practice your posing, you feel like you have it down pat, but like you're saying, it's always going to be different when you actually step on stage and there with other people. And so then that experience kind of, it's different than how you expected. And like you're saying, then, so it's good that you at least were able to gain that confidence and then take that internationals and not face the same issues.
Yeah, no, literally.
After your placings in the 2022 show, has that kind of put somewhat of an expectation into this show and what you're hoping to kind of come out of it? Firstly, are you doing are you only doing the class? You're not doing, because you can't do first anymore, but can you do they have a juniors? Are you still able?
Yeah, so I'm still able to do juniors, I think, for another 2 years. I'm not able to do novice only because I placed first in juniors. So I'll just do juniors and opens.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you nervous that you kind of need to kind of reclaim that title of juniors?
You know what? I actually think about this a lot. Look, if I win juniors again, like awesome, like I'd be stoked. I think as well though, because I nailed everything in my reverse and like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to in my prep, Like at the end of the day, like you don't know what the judges are looking for.
Yeah,
Like personally, I think season A to season B, like they were two completely different looks.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, so at the end of like you don't know what they're looking for. And if they turn around and for instance they don't like my physique,
Yeah,
whatever, like at least I know I've done everything that I did or could have done in my prep. And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, that's all you can do.
definitely. No,
Like,
that is.
yeah, I'm not going to turn around and be shitty because they didn't like my physique. Like, yeah,
I think that's the most important mindset to have in it, because like you're saying, at the end of the day, you're really leaving it all up to the 7 judges. It's about being confident in what you've done and the improvements that you've made, and just hopefully what you present is to their liking.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if they give you the feedback, like for example, more rear delts and glutes, and you bring that, it's just like, okay, well, I know I've gone off and worked for it and done what I could have done to do that feedback. It's just like, yeah.
Have you, in saying that, it made me think, like, do you ever worry, or has it ever been a thought that maybe, when you take the judges' feedback and you apply what needs to be done, that sometimes, let's say you apply it too much and then you make your glutes and your rear delts too big, and then now like something else becomes a downside, like another area where there could be your legs, your hamstrings, or whatever it may be, or your back. Does that, how do you, I guess, try to balance that to kind of keep the perfect proportion?
Well, when like I was on my 6 days, we noticed, especially before I started prep, that for instance, like my back was getting a bit too much of a V taper.
Yeah.
So it was making sure that I wasn't so much growing out of like the category, like the word. I don't even know what the word is at this point, but like just not as big as they would have wanted. So it was just like keeping a good eye on that and making sure that that was under control. And another thing probably as well is just quads as well. Like I am quite quad dominant. So it was making sure that they weren't growing anymore and just focusing it purely just on hamstrings and glutes. So yeah, I'm not training quads at the moment. And I've only got like 3 sets of back.
Okay, so really limiting those areas so you can try to complete.
So it's just more so that I can just basically have more of like a pop in my shoulders and glutes. Yeah.
Is it something that you've considered in regards to trying, I guess, like what you're saying? So for example, you would kind of suggest that your quads are a bit of a stronger area of yours. So, you reduce the training and you're not training. Do you worry that there may be a possibility that you could outgrow the bikini? Because, they're looking for a certain particular look.
Yeah.
And I feel like, sometimes just genetic wise, you can't help, like, there's males that like classic, but they, that waist is too thick, or they just can't get that exact symmetry. Is it something that you're worried about that could occur, or do you think you are able to kind of maintain that look that they want?
It's hard because with my training, like I love training quads, I love training chest. I love training the things bikini girls are ideally supposed to train. And with the future, like I don't know whether they'll like my physique or whatnot in bikini, especially like if I keep growing and stuff. And I don't want to have to limit myself to training and train a specific way to suit a criteria. Like if I could train the way I like, and for instance, like grow into figure or something, like I'd be open to that. Yeah, for sure. Because I don't want to have to hold back myself just to fit a certain criteria when I know I can achieve a lot, like actually doing what I like doing.
That kind of, I guess, was more of how I should have asked the question, which is, that's what I was wondering. Like, some people feel they need to put a limit on themselves because they want to fit a certain criteria. But so I guess your passion for bodybuilding, like, I guess competing is an exciting part and you can show that hard work. But for you, the passion of bodybuilding is the training. So if you so need to be, and your body does continue to grow and you feel bikini is now limiting you, wellness or figure would never be out of.
Yeah, it definitely, like, I'd be open to it for sure. And that's the thing, like I said this to Keegan the other day, actually. I was like, after like this season and I get my feedback and I go into another growth phase, like I don't want to go into a growth phase being like, okay, you're not allowed to train quads. Like I want to train quads, I want to train back and chest, like, and however my physique develops at the end of the day, like that's just how it is. And then I'll make a decision from that.
I think that's important too, though, because I feel like you it's such an interesting thing, having to, I guess, restrict yourself in that manner, like you're saying. Like when you think about Callum, who is a pro now and had watched how much his body just exploded in the off season because he no longer had to restrict himself.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting, I guess, in that regard, what may happen with your physique if, you do remove, I guess, not that you have restrictions at the moment, but what possibilities could occur.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like if you're not training the way you love to, or training like the certain muscle groups you love to, like I personally think you just lose your love for training. Like you wouldn't want to do it, like especially if you're not enjoying it.
And I think in that regard too, you're also kind of going to continue to bring a package to the stage that is not necessarily your best because you're yourself, and then you get annoyed that you're not winning. It's kind of your own fault in that regard.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%.
Kind of back to this prep, I guess, what is being 8 weeks out, if you don't mind, in sharing kind of how's, I guess, are your calories really low? How's everything kind of going? Have you feel like you've hit that real prep low at the moment, or you still feel like you're smooth sailing?
The last few weeks have been interesting. So my calories are probably the lowest they've actually been in any prep.
Okay.
More so, I think, because we're just pushing for conditioning this show. And my cardio is actually at the highest it's ever been in any prep. So like rest days is an hour on the stairs, and then training days is 30 minutes on the stairs.
Starving.
I feel hungry, but to be honest, I think you kind of just learn to block it out. Like, and the way I look at it is, if you're hungry, you know it's working.
Yeah, that's true.
To be honest, I'd actually be really worried, like if I was still like satisfied with my food and content. I'd be like, what's wrong?
Yeah, I remember when I just did a recomp cut phase, and my food was lowest that it's been in a while, and I was telling myself a similar thing. Like when I'm hungry, I was like, you're hungry, but this means so just
and like I was saying, like waking up in the morning feeling hungry, like you know that it's working, and like you'd expect a good drop at least.
How's your weight? Has it kind of been the lowest it's been as well? Like, or you still are you a bit in regards to, are you still a bit above what you were last time in prep? Like, do you feel you've made the improvements?
We're expecting to be maybe 2 to 3.5 kilos heavier this show.
Yeah.
The only one thing we're noticing this prep compared to last is when my body is getting stressed, it's like my weight's jumping, like, which is normal. But like my pinches will still go down or stay the same. So when my body's like not stressed, so when we trialed like the 5 weeks training before we actually decided to do it, I dropped like, how much did I drop? 2.5 kilos in that week.
Oh wow.
And like, you could just tell my body was less stressed. And then like the following week when I just went back to 6 days, weight went back up. My body was just, weight went back up, like my body was just stressed. So even just having like that one day of not training, like, just made the biggest difference.
What has been other ways, I guess, have you tried to manage stress this prep, seeing though it plays such a big factor for you in that regard?
It's more so for me just focusing on like my recovery and sleep. Like obviously, because my body's quite fatigued at the moment, I feel like I can feel when I'm getting watery, like when my legs start to get heavier and stuff like that. So it's just like managing that. Whereas like just massages, physio, more sleep, just
so it's more the stress on the body than a mental stress.
And that's the thing, like Keegan asked me like a few weeks ago, and he's like, what are you stressed about? And I was like, that's the thing that's stressing me. I don't know. I'm like, I generally don't know what I'm stressed about. But like when you're trying to think of like why you're stressed and why your body's not working with you, it makes you naturally stressed.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on?
Nothing's worse than having issues and not knowing why, and that causes a like
Yeah.
a
Like, why am I like this? Yeah. Nah. But
well,
yeah.
I guess in some regard, it's better to be having physical stress because that's a lot more manageable, like you're saying,
Yeah.
with massages, sleep, recovery, instead of being mentally stressed, and that then causing, because then when you're mentally stressed, then that can cause more physical stress. So at least it's a bit more manageable in that regard.
Yeah, 100%. No.
Is there anybody coming into this show that you're kind of, I guess, excited to stand next to, that you know is competing, that you haven't had the opportunity yet? Because what height class are you in? Are you A, B?
What's the height? I think it goes up to D.
Yeah, I think D.
I'm in the tallest height class. There's a few girls I'm excited to see. Kristen Ellis, she did season A back with me, and she's made crazy changes in her off season. Like, she looks like a completely different physique, like she's bringing. So I'm really excited to see how she goes. One of my good friends, Bella Morrison, she's about to do her first season. So I reckon she'll do really well, especially first timers.
Yeah, her and Tim look to be bringing a really good package.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been able to keep her fullness so well. Like, she's still so full, but she's lean. Like,
yeah,
I reckon she'll do really well. I'm trying to think who else is doing season A. To be honest, besides like those bikini girls, there's a chick in Queensland, Amy. I'm not 100% sure what her last name is.
Yeah.
She's doing figure though.
Oh yeah. And she's got the tattoos.
Yeah. I reckon I definitely 100% she's up there. And then
really, really good.
Yeah, she is very lean. And then Hannah Wellness. Yeah, I reckon she'll do really well as well, backing up with season A.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing, because now she's doing a whole prep with Ross, kind of how they'll be able to, because I think the only thing was just that conditioning. So I'm really interested to see if they can nail that, because I think she has the fullness in the glutes.
She has crazy potential for wellness.
So it's going to be really exciting to kind of see, especially for Perket too, like for Louis. And because I know that I didn't realize that they kind of only did I thought Louis was running her prep, but she was actually more managing it herself. And then to kind of see, then obviously Ross jumped in the last 4 weeks, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Speaking of conditioning, it just made me think. So I had a judge on the my last podcast, and something that I asked her that I know a lot of athletes interested about was to do with, I guess, sometimes getting a feedback at a state show and then coming to nationals, and then saying, like, for example, let's say at a state show, your feedback, you're perfect, bring that to nationals, but then coming to nationals and then getting a feedback of, oh, you needed this or this, but it was like, well, but it's due to kind of the base of who's actually on stage, and then comparing. So at the state show, this was obviously the best one there, but then whoever was at nationals, it brought out weaknesses in this physique. So
I can't hear you now. I can hear you now.
Well, how much of that did you hear?
It cut out when you said from like the state show to nationals.
Oh, so I was saying, so for example, like someone who looked the best at the state show and their feedback was just bring that, you're all good, no feedback. And they come to nationals and then they actually get feedback saying, oh, well, you needed this or this. And there's that confusion. And she was explaining it's kind of more based on the average of athletes that are presented. So at the state show, she had the best, but then there was someone from a different state show that showed up at nationals and actually showed some flaws on this physique. So my question is, especially with bikini, kind of, in my opinion, like one of the hardest to judge and really find that particular look, especially, for example, if you look at the Olympia and what happened with, Jen and Maureen.
Yeah.
And you were saying you and Keegan are trying to bring a sharper look, a more conditioned look. I guess, is it something that you've considered with Keegan, of how do you judge the right amount of condition to bring? Or is it more just you guys are going to try and focus on bringing a condition that you are satisfied with, and you're just going to hope that it goes with who just shows up on the day?
I think ideally we want to come in a bit leaner, like between my glute and hammy tie-in, just to show that a bit more. But it's more so just what we're happy with, I think, because like between like the VIC show and nationals, I think it's 3 weeks. And even though 3 weeks isn't a long time for a prep, like it is, like a lot change in 3 weeks. So I think we'll just wait to see like what my feedback is from the VIC show. And look, if it is coming leaner, we just got to push harder. If it's like maintain, like bring your physique to nationals, like just like try maintain it to the best and whatnot. Because like, as you said, like a state show is so much smaller than nationals. Like you're going up against so many more girls at nationals. So it's like, yeah, everyone's physiques are going to be different. Like they might like someone else's physique rather than yours. Like you just don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just like, I guess, back to it's funny, the more people I speak to that have competed or are competing, and as much as we try to be so calculated about what we bring to the stage and that perfect look, there's always that underlying factor of it really is just the luck of the draw, because there is just so many, like you're saying, so many competitors, so many different looks, and the judges can only really go off what they see in front of you. So until you kind of step on that stage, you have no idea what's going to happen.
It's literally just, I think personally, who just shows up on the day. Like you don't know, within like 48 hours someone's body can completely change. Like you just don't know. And you never know what the judges are going to look for, what they decide. So it's just, I think if you go into the show knowing you gave it your all, like you're posing and everything like that, then you got to be happy with like the outcome.
What is, I guess, something that you have found, I guess maybe that you think you might have struggled with this prep, or do you think there's not necessarily anything that you've kind of struggled with yet? Like whether it's, like you said, could it just be the stress issue that you're dealing with, the physical stress, or is it you're worried about, or just something that's standing out in comparison to your last prep?
I think probably like the number one would have to be the stress part, but I think as well, because obviously my physique's a lot different to when I competed season A. Like I put on some size and everything like that. I think it's kind of more so giving me the illusion, like, yes, I'm still lean, but like you naturally just look at yourself and you're like, oh, I'm bigger, but it can be a head fuck, and you're like, am I just like not as lean as I'm supposed to be? Like you just look at yourself in a completely different view. So it's more so for me just reminding myself, like, yeah, you're lean, but you have put on size, hence to why you think you're bigger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you kind of like need to adapt to the changes that you've made. And I think that is a fair point for a lot of people. I think sometimes each prep is different because you have grown, you have put on more size. So yeah, like you're saying, you may have been lean at, let's say, 8 weeks out last show, but you may not be as lean at 8 weeks out this show, but that doesn't mean you're behind. It's just simply because you've grown.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's just more so like reminding yourself that, like, if you're still doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, you don't have anything to worry about. Like,
What's kind of drawn you, I guess, to competing? What kind of, because as you were saying, you really, really enjoyed the training aspect of bodybuilding. What kind of got you interested in stepping on stage?
I went and watched an IFBB show. So I went and watched like the VICs, like this was ages ago. And I think just more so watching that show, I was like, you kind of look at it and you just like more so like mesmerized, and like you see like all the work that people have put in it. And like, to me, it was just like, yeah, like that would be cool. And I remember my first ever prep, actually, I was prepping for wellness. So
Oh, really?
I was gonna do wellness my first show, but as like I got leaner, obviously your body changes and stuff. And then I remember like Keegan and I had a chat in check-in, and he was like, I ideally think you'd suit bikini more. So like I think once we made that decision, like it was like, okay, I'm gonna switch to bikini. But yeah, I think it's just like cool. Like I've always wanted to do a prep and everything. Um, and just the reward of like being disciplined and everything like that, like it just makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Like especially knowing that like you've given a prep like 100%, like it naturally just makes you feel good.
It's definitely very character building. Like it really
Yeah, exactly.
test your limits and, be proud of the type of achievements that you can actually do if you set your mind and give something your all.
Yeah.
Because that's been like the biggest factor that, I've taken out as well, talking to a lot of people, which is bodybuilding is that one sport that no matter what you put in, you're always going to get out, like no matter what. There's nothing else in life, I think, that you can put like, work, study, whatever it is, relationships, friendships. I think you can put in 100%, but you may not always get that back. But with bodybuilding, you will.
Yeah. And I remember when I was starting like my first prep with Keegan, I remember going up to him after the IFBB show, and I was like, oh, do you think like I would suit wellness? And he looked at me and he's like, no. He's like, I don't reckon you do well. And when he said that, like it just in my head, I was like, you know what? Like I'm actually gonna fucking prove you wrong. Like, no. I think that was more so like a massive thing for me as well. I was like, I'm not gonna let you be correct about this. Like I will literally prove you wrong. No.
And then, is that when then I guess that thought of how you were saying your first prep was going to be wellness, and then as time went on, you noticed that maybe I'm more suited to bikini at this point in time?
Yeah, nah, that's literally how it went. I think as I leaned out, like we didn't, because my first prep I actually lost 25 kilos.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so when you look at it, like it didn't look like I lost 25 kilos. I think I just held my weight very well.
Yeah.
So when I lost that, it was like I don't think we realized how much like smaller my legs actually were compared to what they seemed. So that was like a massive factor as to why I switched to bikini as well.
That's incredible. 25 kilos. That's crazy.
Yeah. My first prep was like, my first prep was, how long was it? It was like 31 weeks, my first prep.
Oh my God.
No, it went for ages. Yeah.
And that's the one that
so it was more so that was kind of like when I first started with Keegan, because obviously like the first few months I was with him, I wasn't like, I was compliant, but I still wasn't compliant, if that makes sense. Like every now and then, like I'd go out for a meal, but then once like the IFBB show I went and watched, and like he made that comment that I wouldn't suit wellness, like it just like switched. I was like, you know what? So I was from then on, 31 weeks that prep was.
How much do you think, I guess, the drive and discipline that 31-week prep, and I guess him telling you, I don't think you can do wellness. How do you think that has, I guess, built your character or, helped you mentally with the prep that you did last year and this prep?
I think it's kind of just after doing well in season 8, it's kind of just showing me that like not so much proving something to myself, but knowing that I can do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
How do I put it? Basically, like for instance, like I don't even know how to put it, but like just knowing like what I achieved like my first season, it's just like I know personally I can achieve so much more. So that kind of just gives me the drive to keep like doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, yeah, your coach like does your food and your training program, but you're the one that's going to have to apply to it. Like, they apply it to you, but you have to do the work.
Yeah.
Like, they can't do the work for you.
Yeah, they
So,
can't force you. You still have
yeah,
to. It's still a 50-50.
yeah. So, like, even though, yeah, the results are coming from them as well, like, predominantly they're coming from you as well. Like, if you're half-assing your sessions, like, you're not going to achieve as much as you would, like, if you were giving 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that? Do you think if you didn't place the way you did in last year, that your mindset would be a little different? Do you still think you would have that, I guess, like you're saying, that fire where you want to, you look at what I can do better? Do you think they would have that same motivation?
I think it would somewhat be the same because, say, for instance, I didn't place well in season A. Like, I'd have that fire to be like, okay, I'm going to place well. With my placings in season A, I can still do better.
Yeah.
So I think like the fire would somewhat still be the same. Yeah, because like I know I can do better. But yeah, it's just
It's a self-belief. I think,
yeah, it's a massive self-belief. Like, I know what I can achieve, and like, yeah, like, you got to push yourself and everything like that. But as I said before, you're the only one that can do the work.
And in some way, the placings are just a reward of your own self. Yeah. So it's more of like a confirmation. And you're like, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing. This is good. Now let's kick it up a gear.
Yeah. And like, I love prep as it is anyway. Like, I wouldn't prep if I hated it. Like, I actually love the struggle of it. Like, knowing that like day by day that keeps going on, and like the days like you want to like not do it or don't want to do your cardio and you actually just go do it. Like, it's a rewarding feeling.
Definitely. It's a different type of mental push. Like, it's a really different type of satisfaction. I think, you as much as like being in the off season's fun, you're having more food, you can be a bit more relaxed, but there is definitely an accomplishment. Overcoming, it's like strength comes from overcoming adversity. It's the same type of thing,
Yeah, 100%. And it was like when my cardio on my rest days actually got increased to an hour. I remember I was driving to the gym and I was like, I actually don't want to do an hour. Like, in my head, I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to do this? Like,
especially on the stairs.
I get bored so easily. Like, I wouldn't be able to watch a movie on the stairs. Like, I ended up actually just like staring at a wall, just waiting for time to tick. Because I watch a movie and then I just get frustrated and bored and I'm like, I can't watch it anymore. Half the time my eyes are closed while I'm doing it. But like, even doing that, like, you still go do it. Like, I could have easily just turned around and gone home and be like, yeah, I'll do it later. But you just go do it. No.
That's interesting. I could not imagine staring at a wall. I hate staring at a wall for an hour on the Stairmaster. Sounds like hell.
To be honest, I actually I find on the stairs that's my time. I just zone out. Like, I can easily just switch off on the stairs. It's weird, but yeah, I think
that's important though too, because it's kind of that moment where I think, especially in prep, it's important to have some time of downtime, or a time where, like you're saying, you can, because we sometimes tend to, stress out, or, we're trying to hit this, be perfect in every minute so we can bring the best physique. And, whether for you, like you're saying, that zone out moment is on the stairs. Yeah. Like, you get that double effect of you zone out, you complete the hour, and then you get that like dopamine release of like, I just completed that.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
It gives you that rush and that to keep going.
Yeah. And you look back on it and you're like, even though you're dying while you're doing it, once you finish, you're like, oh, it actually wasn't that bad.
It's actually,
when you're actually doing it, you're like, I actually want to kill myself right now.
Yeah. I remember the first time I implemented the bike, this doing cardio when I was doing my recon.
Yeah.
But the first, I was like 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, this should be easy. And the like first 5 minutes, I'm like, this fucking sucks. I'm like, how am I meant to do another 25 minutes? This is just the worst thing. And then you get to the 15-minute mark and you're like, I'm halfway, we're almost there. We got this. And then you get to the 25-minute mark and you're like, oh no, fuck, this is just going too long. But it's an interesting thing, cardio. It's one of those things. It's you hate it, but then you feel so good afterwards.
Yeah. And like even when I was on the stepper the other day, I don't know why, but I called a friend while I was on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we got into like 2 minutes of the conversation. I was like, look, I'm going to call you back in like half an hour because like I'm literally cannot speak right now.
Try to distract yourself, but it didn't.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah. No, I was like, oh, if I call someone, like it will take up time. And I'm like, I actually can't do this.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Have you, a couple more questions before I wrap things up. Something that you were saying before about you know really enjoying prep and that. Do you think that you prefer prepping over an off season, or is it like do you enjoy that like you're saying that discipline that comes with the prep, and because you do get bored easily, you struggle a bit with an off season, or is it just?
It's hard because when the first few months of my off season, I just want to go back into prep because I loved it so much. But I think once you get your strength back, you find like your rhythm again and like routine with it. I learned to love my off season. Like I love both, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's more so for the off season. It's just being able to see that strength go up and everything like that. That was my most favorite part about it.
Yeah.
And then like obviously with prep, like when you're getting leaner, like you're seeing like the progress and you're seeing like the changes, like, and that makes it exciting too. So like I do prefer prepping, but I also do love like an off season. Like I would be happy to like do a 2-year off season, like after this season, like it doesn't faze me. But then like I'd get an itch, I'd like start seeing like the prep, like people prepping for another season. I'll be like, fuck, I have FOMO right now.
2 years is a long time. That's a long time,
yeah.
Especially
when. And I definitely think as well, it more just comes so down to the fact that, say for instance, I was to switch categories. Yeah. Like if I was going to go do figure or wellness, I would take a longer off season. Whereas I think if I was to stay bikini, I'd probably just do season A like the following year, whatnot.
It's one of bikini's one of those. I think it's probably the only division where you don't necessarily need to take long periods of off seasons to kind of think where you can make those slow progress because you are trying to sort of fit a perfect type of package, which is not overall growth.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I guess my last question to wrap things up is, I guess for anyone who's listening, who's also on prep for season A, what is, a piece of advice or something that like a mantra that you use to get you through the day or to get you through the prep? Well, what is a piece of motivation that you'd like to share with anybody listening?
I think it's more so just doing what you're required to do. Like, whether like, as we were saying before, like with cardio, you don't want to do it, but you still go do it. Making sure like you stay compliant to your meals, like your cardio, your training, because I know for a fact you'll get to the end of the prep, like you'll compete and stuff. And say, for instance, you didn't place as well as you wanted to, or like, you know, you could have done better or anything like, or you wanted to look different. You'd look back on that and you'd be like, okay, but I didn't give it 100%. Yeah. So it's more so in the fact of just giving 100% to your prep, because then once you do your prep and compete and stuff, you can be like, okay, I gave that 100%, and you'll just make you feel good about yourself.
It's like making it to the finish line without having regrets.
Yeah, and like the days like you don't want to do your cardio or do the things that you're required to, like do it, because it will mentally make you so much stronger. Like you'll look back on it like and be like, okay, I was able to do it then, I can do it now.
And it'll just make it easier the next prep.
Yeah, no, for sure. like you're setting yourself up for a good starting point then.
Is that something that you definitely notice as well? I guess, compared to that 31-week prep you did that got cancelled, and then the prep that last year, have you found this one a lot more easier?
I'm a lot more mentally stronger doing it. Like I know what I need to do and I know what's required on like my behalf.
Yeah.
And I think somewhat I've done it before, so I know I can do it again.
And I think that's the most important thing. I think you can never, like we were saying before, you can never mentally prepare, or not mentally, but you can never prepare your body because you've grown, or there's something else, or things that are thrown at you, but that you've improved mentally, which kind of the body leads where the mind is. So if you're mentally in the right headspace, it's only going to benefit you for the better.
It overall it just makes you stronger, and like that would make it so much easier for you. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being my first athlete for the season A. I appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to everyone watching.
Yeah, will be good.
And I'll see you definitely in nationals, and good luck with the rest of the prep.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Have a good rest of the day.
Yeah, you too. See ya.
Yeah.